Today we are kicking off. I'm filing the official paperwork with the Federal Election Commission, and I am declaring my candidacy for the United States House of Representatives. Right now, unfortunately, our current congressman and Congress has failed. I mean, we've learned from Obama and Owens that right now we've been promised that we're going to have greater economic growth, which will lead to jobs. We don't have it. You look at national unemployment, you look at the weak economy, whether it's the North Country or all over the country. We're going in the wrong direction, whether it be on growth and jobs or actually taking measures, being a leader when it comes to getting our fiscal house in order, which is a fancy way of saying just trying to balance your budget and reduce the continuing growth of the federal debt. Right now, if you ask a person on the street and you see the approval numbers of Congress of whatever, down in the teens, 12, 13%. But I mean, you think about his anti-growth policies, which again, that's when people want to say, I want to create jobs. Well, the federal government doesn't create jobs other than the few that it should have. It has to get out of the way and make sure private enterprise can go ahead and grow. And when you have a growing economy, guess what happens, Tim? You have more jobs. So when you go ahead and have things like voting in favor of Obamacare, which has obviously a tax rate increase, is on top of just actually nationalizing 1/6 of the economy. He voted to go ahead and continue with TARP, continue $800 billion bailout. On top of that, he wants to raise taxes. He wants to raise taxes on job creators. It's just simple as that. In a time right now where we want to continue to have growth and job focus, these are anti-growth policies. And those are just three off the top of my head. But these are wrong for the district, wrong for America, and that's why we're going to jump back in here and make sure we have a full exchange of ideas as to which direction this country and certainly which direction the North Country should go. Unfortunately, it's not going to work. I mean, we'll see if it ever sees the light of day in terms of passage in Congress, and that's a whole another discussion. But when you talk about, it's really just another stimulus plan. And if you think about what do we need to make sure that we grow the economy, we really need a lot of things, but chief of which, and this is just it's common sense, but obviously as a business guy, I've dealt with businesses small and large, all over the country, that people, especially here in the North Country, you need certainty. You need to know that when you go ahead and make an investment, that that you have a strong degree of conviction that it's a good opportunity, and that government's not going to undercut you. So when you have temporary payroll tax reductions, when you have temporary regulations that continue to move, when you have a situation where you don't have knowledge of where do you think the country's going, whether it be in terms of taxes, i.e. raising taxes in terms of, again, Obama hasn't come out clearly said how he's going to do that, or whether it comes to regulation, where we continue to get more regulation, whether everything from ozone and the EPA, just to common sense things that just never get overturned, that should be overturned. So if you take a step back and you think about it, be like, how are we going to get to where we need to go by things that don't give investors and business people confidence to go ahead and take the risk that they can grow their business and thereby creating more jobs. And on top of that, we just have just a grab bag of really things that are just democratic stimulus things, where we have in terms of another $2 to $207 billion that are within the Obama plan, 240 of which are the payroll tax situation, and in the chief of which there is almost $60 billion to extend unemployment benefits. It's already 99 weeks. We're talking another almost 150 weeks. That is not good for the economy. It's not good for people in terms of saying, hey, you have people that basically have unemployment insurance for 3 years. It's bad for the economy. It's also bad for those people because at some point in time your skills. If you don't work for 3 years, your skills degrade. Your employment situation, it just becomes more challenging to get a job. So we need that's just the wrong policy. It's really the wrong way to go ahead and give people the opportunity to get back in the workforce, which is what I'm all about. But you got to do that by basically having more job opportunities. And the government doesn't create jobs. The government needs to get out of the way to let the private sector grow. And that's the key word that we're going to have in this discussion, is that everybody can say they're for jobs, that's fine. But who's going to be in favor of creating growth? And with that growth, you'll have private sector job creation. And that's when things get going, and that's when people have opportunities to actually be gainfully employed and have great careers, whether it's here in the North Country or all over the country. first question is, will it get overturned? I mean, again, right now, currently in the country, there's there's a million different lawsuits, seems like, and there's conflicting decisions at the intermediate level, Court of Appeals level. So there's a good chance, if not a strong probability, that the Supreme Court will have to decide the question itself. In terms of the one core question, I mean, does the United States government have the power to tell you to do something that you otherwise wouldn't have to do when you're just sitting in your own living room doing it? It really becomes a technical legal question that all the scholars can debate about the Commerce Clause when you're sitting there. But does the government have the ability to mandate you do something? We've never had that before, ever, whether in any of the political or legal or legislative rulings and decisions that we've had over the course of our 200 plus years. And this is a market change. So I'm dead set against that. There's no way that government can tell you what to do just sitting there not doing anything. There's no way. And so based upon that, Obamacare is patently unconstitutional. No question about that in my mind. And I hope and trust the Supreme Court would, at the appropriate time, reaches that decision. As a congressman, as a future congressman, I'll work to make sure that we do everything we can to make sure that Obamacare doesn't get implemented, because as you know, it's staggered over time up to 2014, if memory serves, where different parts of the actual bill get phased in. State exchanges, things in terms of employer mandates, people with more than 50 employers and things like that get staggered in over time. And we will do, in Congress, whatever we can to make sure that before the decision gets overturned, i.e. before Obamacare gets ruled unconstitutional, to stop the implementation of it all. Well, look, we're talking about, again, it's going to be about growth. It's going to be about creating economic development. And, I know how to do that. I'm a business guy. I've been successful. I know exactly what it takes to run businesses, to turn businesses around, and to make sure that people, keep going and keep having the incentives, or at least, how about this, removing the disincentives from going out and being an entrepreneur, a business person. And that's nothing fancy, just someone who's going to take a risk, say, hey, I'd like to open up a studio to cut hair. Hey, I got this great idea where I think I can create some sort of local manufacturing. Hey, I'd like to open up a new Mexican restaurant. Whatever the case might be, and these are just samples off the top of my head. If you have policies that make it hard to hire people, that put people at risk because they can't see a path where they can actually make money, and again, at the end of the day, we want entrepreneurs to go ahead and commit capital. And by committing capital, you have more people, places, and things going on. And that will actually need more people to run those things. And that is how jobs are created. It's about growth. It's about growing the economy.